The red warning light flashed 3 times before Captain James Miller even noticed it. He had been too busy watching the Earth spin below the International Space Station, its blue oceans and white clouds making him feel small, as always. The warning light kept flashing, more urgent now. "Control, this is ISS. We're getting some strange readings from the Jupiter sector," he said into his radio, fingers flying across the control panel. The readings made no sense. Objects were moving at impossible speeds, then slowing down in ways that defied physics. The radio crackled. "ISS, please confirm readings. Are you seeing multiple objects?" "Affirmative. Control. 5. No, 7 objects. Size estimates putting them larger than anything we've ever launched." Miller's heart beat faster as he watched the object's trajectory. "They're decelerating. Control, these things are slowing down on purpose." Down on Earth, in the NASA control room, dozens of screens lit up with the same data. Director Tom Wilson stared at the main display, coffee cup frozen halfway to his mouth. "Get me the president," he whispered to his assistant. Now, within hours, every major observatory on Earth turned their eyes toward Jupiter. The objects had slowed enough to be visible through powerful telescopes. They were ships, massive, gleaming vessels that put every human spacecraft to shame. Their hulls sparkled with strange lights, and they moved with a grace that suggested complete mastery over gravity itself. The President of the United States sat in the Situation Room, surrounded by military leaders and scientists. Similar scenes played out in Beijing, Moscow, London, and every major capital across the globe. For the first time in human history, every nation faced the same undeniable truth: we were not alone. "Mr. President," General Thomas Ward said, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "The objects will reach Earth orbit in approximately 6 hours. We need to make a decision about our response." The president looked around the room. "Options. We can't stop them," the general admitted. "Whatever technology they're using, it's centuries beyond our most advanced weapons. If they're hostile." He left the sentence unfinished. In orbit, Captain Miller continued monitoring the approaching ships. The largest one was beautiful in a terrifying way, like a massive silver arrow headed straight for Earth. Its surface rippled with colors that shouldn't exist, patterns that hurt his eyes if he looked too long. "ISS, this is Control. We're initiating Protocol Omega. Prepare for emergency evacuation." Miller knew what that meant. They were afraid the station might become collateral damage in whatever was about to happen. "Negative. Control. Request permission to maintain position. Someone needs to be up here to watch this." There was a long pause before Control responded. "Permission granted, Captain. God be with you." The hours ticked by like years. Miller watched as the alien ships drew closer, their true size becoming apparent. The largest one was bigger than any city on Earth, stretching at least 100 kilometers from end to end. The others, while smaller, were still massive enough to dwarf any human construction. As they entered Earth orbit, all global communications suddenly cleared of interference. Every radio, television, and digital device received the same message, broadcast in perfect English and every other human language simultaneously. "People of Earth, we are the Galactic Empire, rulers of 10,000 star systems. Your world has been chosen for integration into our dominion. Prepare your leaders for formal first contact. Resistance is inadvisable. We bring civilization to the uncivilized. We bring order to chaos. We bring purpose to the purposeless. You should feel honored." In the ISS, Miller grabbed his camera and started taking pictures. Not for NASA or any government, but for history. Someone needed to document humanity's last moments of innocence, the final seconds before everything changed. The sun rose over Earth's horizon, casting long shadows across the massive alien ships. Humanity's first day as a species that knew, without doubt, that it was not alone had begun. But in deep underground facilities across the planet, old machines were starting to hum, and ancient plans were being set in motion. The Empire had no idea what they had just awakened. The landing site they chose was Central Park, New York. The smaller Imperial ship descended from the clouds like a falling star, its silver surface catching the morning light. Police had cleared the area for 10 blocks in every direction, but millions still watched from buildings and screens worldwide. Lord Thex stood at the ship's command center, watching Earth's surface grow closer. His gray skin and tall frame marked him as different from humans, but it was his eyes that would unsettle them the most. 3 purple orbs that could see into spectrums humans couldn't imagine. "Such primitive architecture," he said to his aide. "They still build with steel and concrete. How quaint." The ship landed without a sound, without even disturbing the grass beneath it. A ramp extended, touching the ground with a soft hiss. The world held its breath. 10 blocks away, behind military barriers, Robert Greene of the newly formed United Earth Council wiped sweat from his forehead. As former UN Secretary General, he had been chosen to speak for humanity. Now, watching the alien ship, he wondered if they had made the right choice. "Sir," a soldier said beside him, "they're requesting we approach." Greene nodded. His small team, 3 diplomats, 2 scientists, and 4 military officers, began the long walk toward the ship. News cameras followed their every step. Lord Thex emerged from his ship like a king gracing his subjects with his presence. His silver robes flowed around him despite the lack of wind, and his 3 eyes scanned the surroundings with obvious amusement. "Welcome to Earth," Greene said, his voice steady. "We come in peace and hope for." "Spare me your primitive diplomatic rituals," Thex interrupted. His voice was smooth but carried an edge of contempt. "I speak for the Empire, and the Empire does not negotiate with developing worlds. We are here to inform you of your future, nothing more." Greene's team shifted uncomfortably, but he kept his composure. "Perhaps you could share that future with us." Thex smiled, showing teeth that looked like polished diamonds. "Your world will be integrated into the Empire. Your resources will serve a greater purpose. Your people will be uplifted, civilized, and given meaningful roles within our society. Those who resist will be removed. And if our entire world refuses..." Thex's smile widened. He pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Above them, in the clear blue sky, a beam of light shot from the massive Imperial flagship. It struck the moon, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, a crater appeared. A new crater, visible from Earth, larger than Texas. "That was one ship at minimal power," Thex said. "The Empire's kindness is not infinite, but our power nearly is. You have 72 hours to prepare your world for integration. I suggest you use that time wisely." Greene stayed silent for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, he smiled. "We request the full 72 hours to prepare our response. Will you grant us that?" Thex looked taken aback for a moment. These humans should be panicking, begging, or at least showing fear. Their calmness was unexpected. But no matter, let them have their time. It would change nothing. "Granted," he said. "We are not unreasonable. 72 hours from this moment. When I return, I expect your surrender to be ready." As the alien ship rose silently into the air, Greene turned to walk back to the barriers. General Ward fell into step beside him. "Sir," the general whispered, "is it time?" Greene nodded. "Send the signal. Wake them all up. Every site, every facility. It's time to remember who we really are." Deep beneath the ice of Antarctica, beneath the deserts of Egypt, and under the Pacific Ocean, ancient machines began to power up. In hidden bunkers across the world, soldiers input codes that hadn't been used in 50,000 years. And in space, Captain Miller watched something impossible from the ISS. Tiny points of light were appearing all across the solar system, like stars waking up from a long sleep. The Empire had given Earth 72 hours, thinking it was time for humans to accept their fate. Instead, it was time for humanity to remember its past, and the Empire to learn why their ancestors had warned them about Earth. Deep beneath the Antarctic ice, Dr. Anna Roberts stood before a wall that shouldn't exist. The black metal surface, perfectly smooth despite being over 50,000 years old, hummed with a power that made her skin tingle. Around her, ancient machines were waking up, their lights casting blue shadows across the massive underground chamber. "Status report," she called out to her team. "All quantum cores showing green," replied Mike, her chief engineer. "Power levels at 90% and climbing. Whatever these machines are, they still work perfectly." 20 years ago, they had found this facility while drilling ice cores. It had changed everything they thought they knew about human history. But the world wasn't ready for the truth then. Now, they had no choice. Dr. Roberts, a young technician, ran up, tablet in hand. "We're getting signals from the other sites. Egypt is online. Pacific Base is powering up. The Himalayan facility just broke through its ice seal." In the command center above them, General Ward watched through thick glass as the ancient machinery sparked to life. His phone buzzed. A message from the United Earth Council. "Tell me something good, Doctor," he said as Anna joined him. She smiled, pulling up a hologram from one of the quantum cores. "The Empire thinks they're our first contact with alien life. They're wrong. We're not meeting aliens for the first time. We're remembering that we used to be them." The hologram showed star maps, thousands of them, all connected by lines of light. Trade routes, military paths, the highways of an ancient human civilization that had spanned the galaxy. "Our ancestors were incredible," Anna continued. "They had technology that the Empire can't even understand, but they saw something coming, something terrible. Instead of fighting it, they decided to hide, to start over. They chose Earth, seeded it with basic life, and waited for humanity to rebuild. And they left us all this," Ward gestured at the facility below, "as a backup plan." "Better than that," Anna said. "They left us everything. Our entire history, our technology, our knowledge, all safely stored in quantum computers that never break down. They knew we'd need it someday." Across the world, similar conversations were happening in other hidden facilities. In the Egyptian desert, scientists accessed weapon systems that could reshape planets. Under the Pacific Ocean, engineers activated shields that could withstand supernovas. In the Himalayas, researchers prepared ships that had been waiting for 50,000 years to fly again. On the surface, the world governments kept up appearances. They held emergency meetings, made panicked announcements, and acted exactly as the Empire expected a primitive civilization to act. It was all a show. In orbit, Captain Miller received new orders. "ASS, this is Control. You're about to see some changes. Don't react. Just record everything." "Understood, Control," he replied, camera ready. "Although I wait." He stopped, staring at his instruments. Something's happening to the station. The ISS was changing. Panels that had always been there but somehow gone unnoticed were opening. New rooms were appearing. Systems he had never seen before came online. The primitive space station was revealing its true form, an observation post far more advanced than anything humanity currently had the right to build. "How did we never notice?" he whispered, watching as sections of the station transformed. Back in Antarctica, Anna placed her hand on a scanner. Ancient DNA recognition software confirmed what it had always known. She, like all humans, carried the genetic key of their ancestors. "General," she said, "the quantum cores are fully online. Should we send the message?" Ward nodded. "Do it. Let's remind the Empire why their ancestors left warnings about Earth." Anna pressed her palm flat against the black wall. Instantly, every quantum core on Earth activated at once. A signal shot out across the solar system, awakening devices that had been sleeping since before recorded history. The Empire had given Earth 72 hours to surrender. Instead, humanity would use that time to remember who they really were. Not a primitive species waiting to be conquered, but the descendants of a civilization so powerful that even now, 50,000 years later, their technology could reshape the galaxy. In space, Captain Miller watched as points of light began appearing around every planet, every moon, every asteroid. The solar system itself was waking up, and the Empire was about to learn why their ancestors had been so afraid of Earth. Lord Thex stood on his flagship's bridge, watching Earth through the main viewport. Something was wrong. In 40 years of conquering primitive worlds, he had never seen one respond like this. They should be panicking, fighting among themselves, or begging for mercy. Instead, they seemed calm. "My lord," his science officer called out, "we're detecting energy signatures. They're coming from everywhere." "Explain," Thex demanded. "Every planet, every moon, there are devices activating. Ancient devices. Our sensors can barely understand them." A communication request flashed on the main screen. Earth was calling. Thex accepted the transmission, expecting to see frightened human leaders ready to surrender. Instead, Robert Greene appeared, looking perfectly relaxed. Behind him stood General Ward and Dr. Roberts. They weren't in a bunker or command center. They were standing in front of a black wall covered in glowing symbols that made Thex's 3 eyes widen with recognition. "Impossible," he whispered. "The Empire asked for our answer," Greene said calmly. "Here it is. Check your history." Dr. Roberts stepped forward. "We're transmitting coordinates now. You might want to see what's there before you make any more threats about conquering Earth." The coordinates appeared on the Imperial ship's navigation system, pointing to a distant star system on the edge of Empire space, a system that had been marked as forbidden for thousands of years. "My lord," the navigation officer said, "those coordinates, they're from the restricted zone, the place of the Great Warning." Thex's hands gripped his command chair. Every Imperial child learned about the Great Warning, how 50,000 years ago, their ancestors had encountered something that frightened them so badly they left warnings across the galaxy. Warnings about a power that should never be awakened. "Send a scout ship," Thex ordered. Hours passed. The scout ship reached the coordinates and began transmitting images. The bridge crew fell silent as they appeared on the main screen. They showed a graveyard of ships, Imperial ships, an entire fleet from 50,000 years ago, frozen in the depths of space. The ships were twisted and broken, not by weapons, but by forces that defied Imperial science. And carved into the hull of every wreck was the same message, written in ancient Imperial script. "Here lies the pride of the Empire, who dared to challenge those who came before. Remember Earth. Remember why we fear it." Back on Earth, in the Antarctic facility, Dr. Roberts watched the Imperial ships through their quantum sensors. "They found the graveyard," she said. "Should we show them more?" General Ward nodded. "Give them the full history lesson." Anna pressed her hand against the black wall. Instantly, every Imperial ship's computer system began receiving data, historical records, star charts, and images from Earth's true past. They showed a human civilization that had ruled the galaxy with wisdom and power beyond imagination. A civilization that had chosen to start over, hiding its technology in case it was ever needed again. On his flagship, Lord Thex watched the files with growing horror. The humans weren't evolving up from primitive beginnings. They were waking up from a carefully planned sleep. Their ancestors hadn't been conquered by the Empire. They had simply seen something in the future, something that made them hide their power and wait. "Sir," his tactical officer's voice shook, "we're detecting more activations. The gas giants. There's something inside them. Something massive." Through the viewport, Thex watched as massive structures began emerging from Jupiter's atmosphere. Ancient defense platforms, bigger than planets, powered by science his people had never understood. "Send a message to Imperial Command," Thex ordered. "Tell them." He paused, watching as more ancient machines awakened across the solar system. "Tell them we found the source of the Great Warning. Tell them we found what our ancestors feared." The Empire had come to Earth expecting to find primitive humans ready for conquest. Instead, they had awakened the sleeping giants of the galaxy. And now, humanity was ready to give them their first and only warning. In the Imperial capital, 10,000 light-years from Earth, the High Council gathered in emergency session. The images from Lord Thex's fleet filled the chamber's massive screens. Ancient machines rising from gas giants, defensive platforms appearing from nowhere, and most disturbing of all, the graveyard of their ancestors' ships. High Commander Vale, the Empire's supreme military leader, watched the recordings for the 6th time. "Show me the writing on the ships again," he ordered. The image zoomed in on the twisted hull of an ancient Imperial warship. The warning about Earth was carved deep into the metal, the cuts made by technology that shouldn't have existed 50,000 years ago. "Bring in the historians," Vale commanded. Minutes later, an old historian named Master Reed hobbled into the chamber, carrying a stack of ancient data crystals. His hand shook as he inserted one into the Council's central display. "These records," Reed's voice quivered, "were sealed by our ancestors. They speak of a civilization that ruled the galaxy before us, a civilization that didn't use technology. They mastered it. They didn't fight wars, they prevented them. They didn't conquer worlds, they uplifted them." The council chamber filled with holograms showing vast cities among the stars, ships that could move planets, and machines that could reshape reality itself. "But why did they disappear?" Vale demanded. Reed inserted another crystal. "They saw something coming. A threat so great that even their power couldn't stop it. So they made a choice, to hide, to sleep, to wait. They chose a single world, seeded it with life, and buried their technology in case they ever needed it again." "Earth," Vale whispered. Back on Earth, in the Antarctic facility, Dr. Roberts was accessing those same historical records through the quantum cores. Each revelation made her understand more about humanity's true past. "Look at this," she called to General Ward, pointing at a holographic display. "Our ancestors didn't just leave us their technology. They modified our DNA, added dormant genes that would activate when we found the quantum cores. We're not just remembering how to use their technology. We're remembering how to be them." Above them, Captain Miller watched from the transformed ISS as more ancient structures revealed themselves. The entire asteroid belt was moving, rocks shifting to show hidden shipyards and defense stations. The dark side of the moon split open, revealing vast hangars filled with ships that made the Imperial fleet look like toys. "Control," he radioed. "Are you seeing this? The whole solar system. It's like a massive hidden fortress." In New York, Robert Greene stood in Central Park where the Imperial ship had landed. The grass was still flattened from its weight, but now something else was happening. The ground beneath the park was shifting, ancient machinery awakening from its 50,000-year sleep. His phone buzzed. A message from Dr. Roberts. "The quantum cores are fully synchronized. Should we show them what we really are?" Greene looked up at the sky, where the Imperial fleet hung like silver needles against the blue. "Do it," he texted back. In Antarctica, Dr. Roberts pressed her hand against the black wall one more time. Energy surged through the global network of quantum cores. Across Earth, hidden structures began to rise. The Sahara Desert split open to reveal vast cities. The Pacific Ocean churned as ancient facilities surfaced. The Himalayan mountains shifted, showing entrances to complexes that stretched deep into the Earth. On the Imperial flagship, Lord Thex watched in awe as Earth transformed before his eyes. The primitive world was revealing its true face, not a developing civilization, but an ancient power awakening from voluntary hibernation. "Send a message to the Council," he ordered. Tell them we didn't find a primitive world to conquer. We found the masters of the galaxy, and we woke them up." The Empire had come looking for an easy conquest. Instead, they had stumbled upon the greatest revelation in their history, the truth about Earth, about humanity, and about their own place in the galaxy's long memory. And now, That memory was wide awake. Lord Thex stood frozen on his bridge, watching the impossible unfold. The Earth, which hours ago had seemed like just another primitive world, was transforming. Ancient cities rose from oceans. Mountains parted to reveal technological wonders. The very air sparkled with energy fields beyond imperial understanding. "My lord," his tactical officer's voice cracked, "they're powering up something near Jupiter. It's bigger than the planet." Through the flagship's viewport, they watched as a massive structure emerged from Jupiter's great red spot. It wasn't a station or a weapon. It was a door large enough to swallow worlds. "Full retreat," Thex ordered, but before his fleet could move, space itself changed around them. Dr. Roberts stood in the Antarctic Command Center, her hand steady on the control panel. "All quantum gates are online," she announced, showing them what a real space fleet looks like. Through the Jupiter gate they came, ships that made the Imperial vessels look like rowboats beside aircraft carriers. They were beautiful, all curved lines and flowing energy, built by the science of a civilization that had mastered the fundamental laws of reality. Captain Miller, watching from the ISS, couldn't stop taking pictures. "Control, are you seeing this? They're our ships, aren't they? Our real ships." "Affirmative, Captain," Control replied. "The sleeping giant is awake." On his flagship, Thex received a transmission. Robert Greene appeared on screen, but he looked different now. His eyes glowed with the same energy that powered the ancient machines, his DNA fully awakened to its true potential. "This is humanity's first and final warning to the Empire," Greene said, his voice carrying power that made the Imperial crew flinch. "Watch carefully." A small probe, no bigger than a car, detached from one of the ancient human ships. It moved toward an empty region of space, far from any planets. Greene nodded, and Dr. Roberts activated it. Reality rippled. Space itself folded like paper. Where emptiness had been, a small star now burned, created from nothing, shaped by human will and technology. "We don't build weapons," Greene explained calmly. "We don't need to. We shape reality itself. Your entire fleet couldn't scratch our smallest ship. Your most advanced technology is primitive compared to what we forgot 50,000 years ago." The Imperial crews watched in stunned silence as the newly created star winked out of existence, erased as easily as it had been made. "But we are not conquerors," Greene continued. "We never were. That's why we chose to sleep, to start over, to remember our wisdom before our power. The Empire has two choices now: leave Earth and its solar system in peace, or face the consequences of ignoring the warning your ancestors left you." In the Imperial capital, the High Council watched the transmission in terrified silence. High Commander Vale stood, his decision made before his trembling legs could fully support him. "Send the order to all ships," he commanded. "Full retreat. Mark the entire Sol system as forbidden space. No Imperial vessel is to come within a light year of Earth." Back on Earth, Dr. Roberts monitored the Imperial fleet's retreat through the quantum sensors. The massive ships, once so threatening, now looked small and fragile as they fled at their highest speed. "Should we stop them?" General Ward asked, watching the display. "No," Roberts replied. "They'll spread the word. Earth is awake." That's all we needed. In orbit, Captain Miller watched the last Imperial ship vanish into deep space. Below him, Earth continued its transformation. The hidden cities, the ancient machines, the quantum gates, all of it was just the beginning. Humanity wasn't just remembering its past, it was preparing for its future. "Control," he radioed down. "What happens now?" The answer came from Dr. Roberts herself. "Now, Captain, we remember who we really are. And this time, we'll do it right." The Empire had come to Earth expecting to find savages. Instead, they had awakened the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. And this time, humanity would not need to hide. 1 month after the Empire's retreat, Captain Miller stood at the new observation deck of the transformed International Space Station. The old station had fully awakened now, revealing its true form, a massive command center that could oversee the entire solar system. Still getting used to the changes? Dr. Roberts asked, floating up beside him. The quantum cores had changed her too. Like many humans, her eyes now held a subtle glow, the mark of fully awakened ancient DNA. Look at that view, Miller replied, gesturing at Earth below. The planet was beautiful in a new way now. Ancient cities gleamed in the sunlight, their towers reaching into the upper atmosphere. Quantum gates created rings of light around the equator, connecting every part of the world instantly. Hard to believe a month ago, we thought we were just a developing civilization, Roberts said, smiling. The station's main screen activated, showing Robert Greene in the Antarctic Command Center. Like all the hidden facilities, it had grown far beyond its original size, becoming a city of its own beneath the ice. Status report, Greene requested. Miller pulled up the holographic display with a wave of his hand, another new skill that felt surprisingly natural. The last Imperial observation drone just left the outer system. They're staying well beyond the 1 light-year mark. The Empire is taking our warning seriously. And our progress. Dr. Roberts answered this time. The awakening is proceeding exactly as our ancestors planned. 70% of Earth's population has shown signs of DNA activation. Schools are adapting to teach both our current history and our ancient past. The transition teams are helping people understand their new abilities. She paused, bringing up another display. The Jupiter shipyards are fully operational. The quantum network spans the entire solar system now. We've even made contact with other sleeping colonies. Mars had an underground civilization all along, just like us. Greene nodded, satisfied. And the threat our ancestors saw coming. We found those records last week, Roberts replied. They saw something moving between galaxies, something that devours civilizations. It's still coming, but we have time now. Time to prepare, to grow, to become what we once were, but wiser this time. On Earth below, humanity was embracing its new reality. Children played with gravity as easily as they once played with toys. Schools taught quantum physics alongside basic math. The old borders had faded as people realized they were all part of something much bigger. In orbit, General Ward's voice came through the station's communication system. Captain, Doctor, you might want to see this. A new display appeared, showing the edge of the solar system. A small ship was approaching. Not Imperial, but something else entirely. First contact, Miller said. Real first contact this time. The ship was elegant, built with technology similar to humanity's ancient designs. As it drew closer, they received a transmission in a language that their awakened minds somehow understood. Children of Earth, the message began. We are the guardians. We were entrusted by your ancestors to watch and wait. We see you have remembered yourselves at last. Welcome back to the stars. Dr. Roberts looked at Captain Miller, then at Greene on the screen. They all shared the same understanding. This wasn't an ending, but a beginning. Send our response, Greene ordered. Miller composed the message himself. We remember who we were. We understand why we slept. And now we're ready to return, not as conquerors, not as gods, but as guardians ourselves. The galaxy needs balance, wisdom, and hope. That's what we chose to become. As the Guardian ship drew closer, Miller watched Earth below. Humanity had awakened to find they weren't just another primitive species, but the sleeping giants of the galaxy. They had been given a second chance to do things right, to use their power with wisdom, to face the coming darkness with hope instead of fear. The Empire's arrival had been meant to mark Earth's conquest. Instead, it had marked the beginning of humanity's true return to the stars. This time, they would do better. This time, they would remember not just their power, but their purpose. The new era had begun.